This is something that anybody can do. You don't have to have a professional paint shop to get this done. What's up, Purist? It's Bob from Purist Motorsports. I would want to talk to you today about matching paint to existing paint. When you don't want to paint the whole car, this is kind of the process I use. The first thing you want to do is professionally buff and polish the paint. So the parts of the car that you are not going to end up painting, you want to end up bringing out as much shine as possible. When I say professionally, there are guys out there that are capable of doing that in their own garage. There are guys that aren't, and you would need to pay someone to do it properly because, well, some paints are hard, some paints are soft, and you may end up adding more scratches to it. So we had this paint polished. The second thing is this: you would like to take a flat panel, if you can, to the paint shop. You need to go to a professional paint shop. So with what we did on this car is that we took gas door, because it's flat and it's easy to get off. You definitely want to make sure that there are as few scratches on it as possible and as least amount of debris in the paint, because those two things will end up affecting the color reflection of the paint. That's why you need to have it buffed and polished professionally, or if you're capable of doing that on your own. So when you have a nice, smooth, shiny surface, you can take that gas door or whatever panel you may have, if it's small, over to a paint shop. Third thing, you definitely want to go to a paint shop who is willing to work with you. I spent about 30 to 40 minutes, maybe 45, working with guys at the paint shop that I went to, that I frequent. Make sure you go to a shop that has people who care about what they're going to do for you, because you're going to require some attention at that time in trying to match it. The other thing is that when you are at the paint shop and you're just like this car has had a whole paint. It's completely been repainted. It is not exactly vermilion red. It's very close, but it is, even in the door jambs, you can see that the vermilion's a little bit darker. So with this car not having a paint on it that is factory original, we definitely had to find a close match, probably in a brand that was not what we would have chosen. When I took the gas door to the paint shop, they pulled out multiple brands that have color swatches, and we started with the closest match that we could find, because we were not going with the original vermilion red paint coat. We wanted to find the closest match they had. The great thing about doing that is it gives you a nice base to start with, and then you could work and tint based on the camera image that you get when you scan the door. That's what they did. The last thing is this: you've got a primer base underneath that affects the overall color that is sprayed over that primer. If you have a car that has black primer underneath it with the red, if you were to paint the panel and put gray primer underneath it, the red is not going to be the exact same color unless you go over it with several coats. This car had, we found in a couple places, it had a light gray primer underneath it, which is probably why it looks so orange to me in the sunlight as opposed to vermilion red. We followed that suit with what we did. So when you're putting all of that together, those are things to consider. And it's really, I mention this as a sense that, you know, this would be done like out of your garage, or if you're working with somebody who has the ability to paint. Not everybody can afford the $20,000 or $25,000 paint job that it's what it takes to do paint right these days. You know, materials alone end up costing you $5,000 or $6,000 in buying the right paint, the sandpaper and the primer, reducer. Like, it's not cheap to do paint these days. the right way. Getting it to match, this is more of the shade tree garage mechanic type of matching that I did. You get into the metallics, there's going to be a world of more challenges. When you're spraying metallics, and you can see this, I actually see this on factory cars that are bright silver, or there's a lot of burnt orange cars out there now. You can see where the factory's painted, and there's a kind of a light stripe where the glitter, because that's what's in the paint, is that metallic is actually overlaid, and there's a stripe because of where the wand from where it was painted overlaps. That shows you when you're laying down that paint, that glitter or metallic falls in a certain way out of the gun. And when you respray a panel, you almost need to know what angle that metallic was sprayed from so that it falls somewhat the same way as it did when it was sprayed originally. You know, using the process, the keys are really this. You need to make sure you're polishing out the paint to remove any debris and scratches, and then find a paint shop, professional supplier, someone who supplies for body shops and that kind of stuff. Make sure you work with somebody who actually cares to make that match, and then advise you. They also will be able to tell you, you need to have this base, you need to have this clear, because with ours, they offered us to use a different clear, like what kind of clear you want. I said, I want what that manufacturer recommends in their product line so that it comes out to be that color. So I really didn't care what brand it was, although some people, it seems like painters have a particular brand they really like, and it makes sense because paint is simply physics. It is a chemical reaction, and when the guys are working on them, they get used to a particular process and settings on their guns, so they end up using the same paint over and over again. I would if I were in their shoes painting every day. But this is the way it turned out. You've got a matching set of hood, hatch, and wing. As always, whether you're driving them or storing them, always enjoy them. Peace.